Hello and welcome to Irony and Sarcasm today. And we'll look at some examples in Holes, the book, and elsewhere for some reference. Let's go. Irony. What is irony? It is something that you particularly don't expect for any reason, and it happens. Okay, that's irony. Sarcasm, on the other hand, is something that you usually say, witty things, funny things, but they can be said sarcastically. So saying one thing and actually meaning the opposite in a mean way. Sometimes it's funny though. Okay, so let's look at the first example of irony that I have here on the left-hand side. Irony, drawing trees on paper. Why is it ironic? Because there's a beauty in nature, but yet we have to draw it on paper. So it's a bit of using a bit of humor there. It's ironic that we have to draw it on paper rather than seeing it in nature for itself. Okay, let's look at the next one. In the middle, little into the middle, buying a US flag, checking the tag, and seeing made in China. Great. So in the great old USA, everything is made elsewhere. We import it from other countries. So is it truly American? No, it's ironic. Okay, let's look at the next example. On the right-hand side, I hate three things. Number one, vandalism. Number two, irony. And number three, lists. I think it's kind of funny. Why is it ironic? Because they're saying that they hate these things, and yet it's a list, and it's ironic, and it is vandalism. So those are three things that are ironic. More irony. Here's some signs, and I thought I would bring America into this. Always open, and yet it says closed. That's great. That's irony for you. The middle one here, learn to read, free, and they give a telephone number. Well, that's great. The Literacy Council is doing a good thing, only if you can't read, then you probably won't be able to read the sign, and hence you won't be able to call, so really not a help. Next one, on the right-hand side, you're in America, speak English. Yes, we love to make fun of everyone else's grammar. Everyone should learn to speak English, and yet the person who's speaking English can't seem to understand grammar in the English language. So it should be an apostrophe, R-E, you are in America. Thank you. Next. Sarcasm, my favorite. Okay, let's look at the example all the way on the right. There's a little diagram, mathematical diagram. Sarcasm, find x, here it is. There it is for you. So sarcasm, it's not always mean. I think it's kind of funny, don't you? Next one, may your life someday be as awesome as you pretend it is on Facebook. Yes, everybody is guilty in social media of only posting those beautiful pictures, and you may think that your friends and your family are having an awesome time, but the truth of the matter is we only post the things that look amazing. So that's sarcasm for you. Your life really isn't all that amazing. Okay, now we have one of my favorite writers, Mark Twain. And if you're unfamiliar with Mark Twain, you should get familiar with him. He's amazing. Okay, so the boys in the novel Holes are in a kind of living hell at Camp Green Lake because they're prisoners, if you will. And they have to dig holes all day to reform themselves, supposedly. So you relate this quote by the master of sarcasm himself, Mark Twain. So let's look at it. Here it is. Go to heaven for the climate and hell for the company. Mark Twain. Beautiful. Okay, so why is this sarcasm? What's he saying? He had such a humorous way about him. So no, it's not mean. He's being very truthful, as a matter of fact. So heaven, you always think about, oh, it'll be beautiful weather. So you'll go there if you're going to be a good person, you're going to go there for the weather. And in hell, where the majority of the people are, because you're going to be in good company. So the boys at Camp Green Lake are in a kind of hell, and they're in good company, aren't they? Do you agree? Next, the name Camp Green Lake, a wee bit ironic. Green Lake brings to mind images of lush trees and water, but the place itself is actually a desert. The name is a bit nostalgic, reminding us of a better time before. The irony of this misnaming is heightened by its effect on Stanley. Stanley is the main character, as you know. He imagines a beautiful lake where he and his fellow campers will learn to water ski and swim, and instead, he is presented with the opposite irony. Although he tries to keep up the facade in his letters to his mother, or little white lies, as we call it. Okay, this ain't a Girl Scout camp. Who says that in the novel? Do you remember? The phrase is repeated several times by Mr. Sir, that's right, to emphasize to the boys of Camp Green Lake that they will not be pampered during their stay. Pampered means they're going to be well taken care of, okay? Towards the end of the book, we are informed that Camp Green Lake will be converted into a Girl Scout camp. This is highly ironic and suggests that Camp Green Lake is entering a new, kinder era, pardon me, a change also emphasized by the change in the weather. So, if you don't really understand this reference, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about who the Girl Scouts are. Okay, so think boys are usually tougher than girls, right? That's the old cliche. So think of it that way. But let's understand who the Girl Scouts are. Let's go to the next. All right. So it's like a big club for girls, only that the uniforms are green with badges on them. And here you can see my favorite president, President Obama, down below hugging the girls. Think of it as a big club. And they sell these amazing cookies that I miss very much to raise money for activities and charities. And here they are. My favorites were Thin Mints and Samoas. Man, do I miss those. And Tagalongs. They got this peanut butter in the inside. Awesome. All right, next reference. I respect you, Stanley. Here we go again with some irony. Why is it? Let's look. Pendansky, a supposed psychologist, pardon, makes it clear to Stanley that he will be respected as an individual. However, within minutes, he ridicules Zero for his supposed lack of intelligence, hence the name, leading one to believe that the campers are not actually respected. This is confirmed later in the novel when Pendansky destroys Zero's records and then stands by when Stanley and Zero are surrounded by lethal lizards, unwilling to do anything to save them. Next, you will see irony, the Mary Lou. This reference in the book holds. Sam's boat causes his demise, his downfall, and he's unable to keep up with the faster steamboat owned by Trout Walker. However, the sunken boat ends up saving Zero, who resembles Sam in several ways. When Zero is able to take shelter from the hot sun under the boat and eat the spiced peaches stored in it. So the Mary Lou is another form of irony. You got it. Okay. I respect you, Stanley. Who says that? Let's see. Okay, another form of irony in the novel. Excuse me. This statement, spoken several times by the warden, is generally taken to be a courteous interruption in common speech. Courteous meaning a polite interruption. Excuse me. Affedersin, as you would say in Turkish. However, When the warden says it, the warden is a woman. That's also kind of ironic as well in the novel. And when the warden says it, however, it is a declaration of authority over those around her. She is not asking to be excused. Rather, she is asking that um, all the others should acknowledge her superior authority and power. Okay, so here we go. We're coming to the end. The irony in Stanley. Let's think about it. Let's read the analysis of the book Holes that I took from the internet. Holes is a novel which asks the reader to sympathize with characters who have been deemed unacceptable by society, with the exception of Stanley. And we'll get back to that. The boys are all criminals, and yet they are the heroes of the story. In this section, the story of how Kate Barlow becomes an outlaw allows us to feel sympathy for a woman who was initially presented as a dangerous criminal. Her cruelty as an outlaw is a direct result of the cruelty that she and Sam faced from the racism of the law and the racism of Camp Green Lake citizens. Kate is presented as having no options other than the path of an outlaw, and she is to avenge the death of Sam. This obvious example of cruelty causing more cruelty reflects the situation at Camp Green Lake, where the boys who are treated harshly by adults act cruelly towards each other as a result. Okay, so we don't really have to look at all of this psychology and this analysis. What I want you to take from it is the exception of Stanley. Okay, where is the irony in the book with Stanley? Stanley actually ends up at Camp Green Lake because these sneakers fell on top of his head while walking, and he thought, "Oh my God, this is destiny happening to me." Why? Because his father was he was an inventor and he had a shoe recycling business, so he was actually going to help his dad out. But the shoes, actually, as a coincidence, were his idol's shoes, Clyde Livingston's, and they fell on top of his head. So then later on, he ends up getting in trouble for this, and he was arrested and sent to Camp Green Lake because they thought he was a criminal. He had stolen these shoes, where in fact he wasn't really a criminal. He isn't really a criminal at all, but he's treated just the same. So the irony is Stanley's situation, unfortunately. I hope that clears up a little bit of irony and some sarcasm. I hope you are encouraged to look for some more examples for yourself on the internet. Take care.